In this video, we are going to discuss the immunity as well as antibody production after COVID-19 infection. At the end of the video, we will talk about how long somebody is immune after getting a COVID-19 infection. Don't forget to like and share this video so other people can get information about coronavirus immunity. And also don't forget to subscribe as we are publishing more videos on coronavirus. So let's discuss how coronavirus interacts with our immune system and what happens when somebody gets infected with COVID-19. So this is our body, and these are the cells of the body. Now this is outside of the body, and that's where the coronavirus hangs. And these are the green spike proteins on the coronavirus, and there is a mRNA inside the coronavirus. So the green ones are the spike proteins, and the pink one is a RNA. This RNA is very important because that encodes the virus. So basically this RNA is needed for any cell to produce more viruses, as you will see shortly. So when the coronavirus comes into the body, there is no defense because there are no antibodies in the body. So the coronavirus now is free to enter any cell. And once the coronavirus enters the cell, it releases its RNA, and this RNA then goes into the cell's machinery to produce more viruses inside the cell. The virus hijacks the cell's machinery to create more and more copies of itself. Eventually, these viruses would leave the cell and infect other cells, and this process continues uninhibited because there is no defense in the body against the virus. And as the cells are getting infected, people get sick, they get symptoms, they get sicker and sicker if this continues to go on. But our body has something called B cells. B cells are immune cells, and because viruses are foreign to our human body, so they will start studying the structure of the virus and start producing antibodies against them. So what are antibodies? Antibodies are Y-shaped protein. They are like missiles. They will go and attack a particular structure based on the shape of the Y. So that's how they recognize which structure to attack. So these antibodies are made against the spike protein of the virus. So these antibodies would get attached to these spike proteins and eventually destroy the virus. And this process continues because more and more antibodies get produced, and more of these antibodies would keep on destroying all the viruses. Now the virus is not able to get into the cell, and they get cleared from the blood because of all the antibodies that are floating around and killing each and every virus they can see. B cell will also help form what we call as memory cells. Memory cells keep the memory of these viruses. So next time if the virus comes in, they can mount a more stronger response against the virus and more quicker response so that the virus can get killed faster. And that's the reason after the first infection, it's easier for the body to fight the second infection. So the whole immune system works and eventually clears the virus from the body, and these B cells and the memory cells then just keep on floating in the body, as well as the antibodies which are left over after this big fight. Now when the virus comes into the body the second time, there are already antibodies in the blood which now know the virus, and they will immediately attack the virus. Also, the memory cell will push the B cell to produce more antibodies very quickly. In this case, immunity has been developed, and this quicker antibody response would lead to preventing this virus from entering any cells, and the virus usually would be killed right in the bloodstream itself. The amount of antibodies that are in the body is called antibody titer. Higher the titer means more number of antibodies are floating in the blood. That means more protection. That is what an antibody titer is. And antibody titer is important for immunity because higher the titer, better the immunity against the virus. So let's talk about antibody titers and our question, how long you are immune after getting COVID-19 infection. So once somebody gets infected with COVID-19, it takes 2 to 3 weeks for these B cells to produce antibodies. During these 2 to 3 weeks, the virus is wreaking havoc in the body, but once 2 to 3 weeks are over, there are antibodies already being produced and killing the virus, and that's the reason people start recovering within 10 to 14 days. So these antibody titers would go up initially, and they likely reach the peak around 35 days, and then eventually start trending down. So all these antibodies are floating in the body, but they keep on decreasing in numbers once the virus is gone, because they are not needed, more are not being produced, and whatever antibodies are there are slowly going down. But even though these antibodies are reducing, they can still continue to fight COVID-19 infection if it happens again, and what we call is reinfection. But eventually, after a long period of time, these antibodies will hit back down to zero or undetectable levels. And once that happens, there is no more immunity against the virus. So based on the research that is coming in, we know that the antibodies are lasting anywhere between 3 months to 8 months. Earlier research is suggested that they last about 2 months and then start decreasing. But then eventually, latest researches are showing that the antibodies can be in the blood for at least more than 6 to 8 months. That means the immunity against the virus after COVID-19 infection can be anywhere between 3 months to 8 months. So for everyone's safety, it may be better to assume that the antibodies are in our blood after COVID-19 infection for about 90 days. That is the time is kind of safe for most people, but not for all people, and it is not very easy to determine who has better antibody titers than others unless you measure it in the blood. And therefore, even though somebody has COVID-19 infection, it is always important that you still maintain all precautions, including washing your hands, masking, social distance, to protect yourself from reinfection. But for the first 90 days after COVID-19 infection, you are safer than most people, although not completely safe from COVID-19 reinfection. Please note this data can change. COVID-19 infection is very new for the medical science. New data is coming in, but this is what we know about immunity after COVID-19 at this point. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and share this video so others can get information too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel, as we are publishing more information about coronavirus for all of you.